ladies and gentlemen. And tonight, introducing the show is myself, the one and only, strong and conditioned Lee Hazard. And tonight, I have the utmost pleasure of finally getting to interview the burpee community hardest working character and the biggest wind up merchant. The burpee version of Ric Flair. And hopefully, when he grows his goatee back, it'll be Stone Cold Steve Austin. The unbelievable and devilishly charismatic Joe Hotai.
Oh, my drum roll was a bit out. Look at that. That introduction that you just delivered sounded very sounded difficult.
Did it sound a bit stunted?
Yeah, stunted. It didn't flow very well.
Oh,
It sounded.
thanks very much.
Yeah,
Do you want to start this
you're welcome.
again?
Yeah, let's stop. We won't edit it out though. We'll leave that there, and then we'll take two.
All right.
No,
All
thanks,
right.
brother. Good to be here. Good to connect with you again, and good to see you looking well, bro. You look very. I was saying to you earlier before we hit record, you look sharp, mate. You look good, and you said it's
Yeah.
because you shaved your head.
Yeah, I'm just back from a health spa, beauty spa, where I've been getting some complimentary treatments, some laser treatment, a bit of Botox. I get my lips filled as well.
Did you?
Yeah, I got a mill in there, just plump them up. I get
Did,
my eyebrows plucked.
what did you find? Did that help at all with getting your lips plumped up a bit?
Yeah, I'm just feeling a bit more. I just feel like more youthful, more vibrant and confident.
That's, that's good. Well, that must have shown in the way that you're hosting the show right now, which is great.
Well, that's why I got it done, just because I knew I was actually interviewing you, so I had to look my best.
Hey, and I heard very quickly, so you just had a bit of a break, eh? Got to have a little bit of a break from the kids.
Yes, I went to Edinburgh last night with my darling wife. We went just to
Nice.
get a wee bit of together time. We went to
Yeah.
Edinburgh, just walked about Edinburgh, went to stayed in a really nice hotel, had a really beautiful meal. Yeah,
Awesome.
recharged the old batteries.
Yeah, yeah. You just
So it
let the
was really
kids by
good.
themselves with the
Yeah, no,
kettlebells to look after them.
yeah, they had a kettlebell as a babysitter. I just made them do burpees all night. No, their nana was watching them. She had
Oh,
the
nice.
she's done the
That's cool.
duties. So
That's good, mate. Good that you got to have a little break. You need that sometimes, especially with
yeah.
the rugrats you got running around everywhere.
Have you ever been to Edinburgh?
I've been to Inverness.
Have you been to Inverness?
Yeah, I've been to Inverness. Yeah, yeah, that was a beautiful little place. I was only there for a weekend, so some people that I was with at the time that I was looking after were there for a wedding, a family member's wedding, so they flew over
Right.
there and yeah.
So you flew to Inverness from New Zealand.
Yeah, well, actually, we were traveling around the world. So he's a bit of a was a very he was a, ve- he still is a very wealthy guy in Australia, owns so a large mining company and stuff over there, and he was doing some work traveling around trying to play his part in trying to end this child sex slavery stuff. And there were some threats, death threats and stuff against his family and that at the time, and they just wanted some security and stuff to go along. And I had a good friend. We used to serve together. He was senior to me in the Defence Force, and he wasn't able to go, and asked me if I would be able to go. So yeah, then met with the family, and then went from there. But yeah, we travelled. So we went from here to Nepal to Africa. The Inverness trip was just a place that ended up in part of the schedule, but we're in Russia, in Magnitogorsk, and then St. Petersburg, Holland. Then we flew from there to Inverness, and then back around to Ethiopia, and then I went back to Perth. But yeah, it was a good trip. But Inverness was a beautiful place. Yeah, weather was pretty similar to New Zealand. I found at that time that I was there, but very very beautiful place. I thought.
That is so random because like I'm actually annoyed because, like, why would you go to Inverness? Why not go to Glasgow or Edinburgh? I mean, really?
Well, that's where his family was, so that's where the wedding was. That's where they went. Yeah.
Well, I was actually in Inverness last year as well with, this year. Yeah, it was this year with my family. We went in
Yeah,
for a
right.
holiday for a few
Oh,
days up that
nice.
neck of the woods.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
It's
very
a great wee
beautiful
place.
place. Not as good as obviously as Glasgow there. Aye.
Nowhere's as good as Glasgow, mate. But I don't think you could hack it in Glasgow, Joe.
Why is that? Why is that?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. I just don't think you've
It's
got
just something about it.
I just don't think you've got the banter levels to hack
Actually,
it
it's
in a
true.
place like that.
You know what I'd be doing though? I'd just be laughing because, like I do with you.
But people like people that laugh. Do you know what I mean? People like to have their jokes laughed at.
That's right. It's true. So I would be good in that regard. See, people would want me there.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely, mate. So anyway, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this
Meat and
podcast.
potatoes.
I'm finally getting to interview you. There's been a few comments in the YouTube page or pages asking specifically to hear your story, Joe.
They've specifically been saying, when is Lee going to interview Joe? And I've taken the time to reply and say, yeah, he's put me on the back burner. He's got all these other people first, and he's said I can wait.
Yeah, and someone never turned up tonight, or they never get back in touch. So basically, Joe is the stand-in for tonight.
That's the only reason I'm getting interviewed tonight, everybody, is because we mentioned the person who stood us up today?
No, I don't think it would be. I don't think it's a nice thing to name, like, drop them
No,
in it. But we know who it is. But
we know
it's a
who it
shame
is.
because I would have been. I think it would have been a great podcast, and a lot of people would have been
Oh yeah,
very
100%.
surprised to have heard this podcast. But you never know in the future. We don't want to burn any bridges or anything like that. So,
Yeah, we wouldn't burn any bridges even if we mention his name. We'd do it nicely.
oh, I'm sure that's what we're known for, Joe, for being nice guys.
But yeah, so that's a true story. I'm the fill-in. I'm the stand-in, just because we haven't heard back from the person that we really wanted to interview, and so therefore couldn't send them the link. But so I'm your fill-in for today.
And I cannot wait, Joe, because do you know what, Joe? I don't even know that much about you. So this is going to be like really eye-opening for me. So to kick things off, Joe,
Yeah.
tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, tell us a bit about myself. There's a lot. There's lots of bits to tell. But yeah, so married, so husband and father. Wife and I have 6 beautiful children, 3 girls, 3 boys. They're all a lot older now. So the daughter is 21. Then she's the oldest, and the 3 boys we had in a row straight after her. They're 19, 17, 16. And then the 2 baby girls are 14 and 11. So yeah, that's us. Our daughter is studying down in Wellington, so we've still got 5 of the kids at home with us. 4 of the 5 that are currently at home are working right now because it's school holidays. So we kick them out to work. They're working out in the fields, labouring work, which is what I did before I joined the Defence Force. And yeah, and so the home is a little bit quieter during the days and the weekday lately because of the kids on their school holidays and stuff. So my wife has a bit of time to herself to do what she needs to do. And the little one gets to do all the chores in the house. She cleans the kids' room, she does the house, and she does the laundry and stuff for them, and she gets paid some pocket money from each of them each week. So yeah, everybody's doing their bits. And then they give me my space so I can do my training and do the other work that I do. But yeah, no siblings, so I'm an only child, so everything is mine. But the beauty about that is that I'm the oldest, I'm the youngest, I'm that middle child that gets forgotten, but more importantly, I'm the favourite. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the
And
main part.
and the best looking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm the best looking as well
Yeah.
out of all
And
the
the
kids.
ugliest.
Damn it! Yes, I forgot about that. And the ugliest, yeah.
So basically, I've just gathered for that is that you're quite a strict father who's kicked his kids out the house so that he can do burpees all day.
Yeah. Well, we got them out of the house as soon as we could. Well, we felt that it's important for them to start working as soon as they can. Our daughter, this is her first job, so she's working in the pack house, same place where our boys work, but they're out in the fields doing more manual labor type stuff, and our daughter's in the pack house, so she's 14. The 11-year-old would like to go, but we'd like her to go, but she can't. She might be deemed as slavery if we said to. So yeah, 4 of them are working. We're charging them board as well, so they get used to that. But it's been good. We just put it off into the savings. The money usually gets spent on them anyway.
Joe, do you charge
Yes.
your 11-year-old daughter board?
No, she not yet. 14-year-old one, yes, she's paid, but she doesn't pay as much as the boys. Yeah.
You charge your foot, like, we call it dig money in Scotland.
What's it? Dig money.
Dig money.
Dig money.
Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you would pay your parents dig money once you got your first job.
yeah.
But that wasn't when you were 14, Joe.
It is. It is. But here, you know what? Because my wife is Samoan, I'm Maori. The Samoan side, most Samoan families would, every cent they make will go straight to their parents. So we tell our kids, just think of how lucky you are. You're only paying a small amount.
Yeah, so you're kind of breaking a bit of tradition there.
Yeah, breaking the tradition a bit, so they don't have to pay as much. But no, they're happy. But it's good for them. Learn to budget, use the money on what they want, and most of the money that they put in goes into a separate account or gets spent on them anyway. Little monkeys.
Yeah. See, to be honest with you, I absolutely respect that approach, and it kind of gives me some insight with regards to your work ethic, because if there's one thing that strikes me about yourself, it's your work ethic. I don't think anybody works as hard as you that I've ever met in my life, but particularly within the burpee sphere. You put out like 2 or 3 videos a day, constant workouts, and you've done it constantly since I've known you. So would you say that's something that you're trying to instill in your children?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lee. Yeah, 100%. Love to do that. My wife is similar as well. She doesn't post her stuff, but she's always made it clear, because our culture typically here in New Zealand has one of higher diabetes and health and obesity and stuff in a lot of ways. Not always the case, but that in a large number of cases it is like that. And so trying to teach our children the importance of just trying to stay healthy and for as long as they can, while they can, and that the benefits of that will flow on as they grow, whether that's when they're facing challenges at school and finding things hard. Everything's hard in school, right, till it becomes easy. I know I wasn't the best student, but being able to approach those with a different mindset, and then work when they're at work, knowing that when they've been working, because it does get hard, the labouring stuff out there. And for our boys, when they started this job here in Pukekohe in Auckland, I went out there with them in their first season, just to work alongside them, see how they were, and so that they can see. And yeah, they did well. They held their own, largely because they've been used to, well, a lot of the times they haven't had a choice. They've had to train and exercise because the benefits for them, although they may not realize it now, maybe typical teenagers like, oh, dad wants us to train again. They will realize them later on. And they're starting to realize that now. Our older boys do some, well, the 2 of the older boys train frequently or regularly, consistently by themselves without me needing to nudge them along. And the girls, yeah, they're doing theirs on their own now. Although sometimes I've got to remind them, because they thought that when school started that they didn't have to do their burpees anymore. I just reminded them that no, they still need to do them. So they quickly learnt from that, because then they had to do double the amount the next day because they didn't do their number that they were supposed to do the day before.
Do you know, one thing that jumps out at me there is, like, when you're talking about them having like a hard week at school, and it was always something that I used to come home on a Friday at 4 o'clock and think, "Whew, just had a hard week at school, I need to de-stress." How I long for those days again.
Yeah, I reckon, eh?
Yeah, a hard
That's
week at
such a
school.
true point. And just one other point, when you were saying hardest working, I was gonna jump in then, and say that's probably because nobody else needs to work as hard. That's why.
So like, why do you work so hard in that, like, burpee sphere? What is it that makes you feel you need to train as often as you do? Is that just something that's inherent with you from a like a cultural standpoint, having been brought up in that environment, or is it like, does it go deeper than that? Is it like probably a hint of neurotic behaviour with regards to training that you're addicted?
Yeah. I think the latter part of that, maybe a hint of neurotic behavior and the addiction. Not so much the way I was raised, because I wasn't really raised in my setting anyway, with regards to growing up. Like my mum, who I love very much, but she was not around very much. So she was always working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. So from a young age, I was left at home a lot to my own devices, but I was always pretty active, pretty mischief a lot of the time, but pretty active, out and about with my friends. Had a lot of spare time, but I had great older cousins that were like my siblings. I call them my brothers and sisters, who would look after me a lot of times. But yeah, a lot of times I was left to my own devices. So not so much the health and fitness side of things. That developed more so once I decided and knew what I wanted to do, which was join the army at a young age. At 14, I knew what I wanted to do, and so I knew that fitness was going to be a part, or an important part anyway, of what I would need to be able to do consistently. And then, yeah, sure enough, once I was old enough to join and got in, yeah, it just became a main staple. You rock up, they do roll call, you have an inspection, then you're into PT, then you go away, get cleaned up, come back for the day's work, and then usually there's another sort of PT session in the afternoon, or you do one on your own just to keep things ticking over. So that just became a habit, pretty much. Yeah.
That's interesting, because that leads me into my next question. And I mean, and cut me off if it's something that you don't want to speak about.
Yeah.
But you speak about having spent time in the army. Is that something you want to share with us and talk about your trajectory through the army and how you served? And
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, so the army was awesome, man. As everything was probably better than I thought it would be, for the most part. So I served just under 11 years all up, combined, both the New Zealand and the Australian Defence Force. Loved it. Joined infantry. So my mum wanted me, when I was told I was going to join the army, she wanted me to join and get a trade. So she wanted me to join and be an engineer, because you could either become a chippy or whatever. There's more employment opportunities after. And I just really didn't want to do that. I wanted to be a soldier. So my vision of a soldier at 14 was, I came across a book. It was all black and it had 3 letters on it, SAS. And I thought, oh, what's this? My older cousin showed it to me, actually. And then I looked through it. There was just short little paragraphs underneath these, what I thought were really cool pictures of people tooled up in all their gear. And I thought, that's what I want to do. So I didn't read it. I wasn't big on reading, and so I didn't know a heck of a lot about it. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do, just based on the images, the way that they made me feel when I looked at them. What they appeared to be doing, from my perspective, was helping people and doing things that were pretty high risk. And so, yeah, I thought infantry would give me the best stepping stone towards that sort of job, of my limited knowledge of what they did. And so when I told my mum, she's like, no, you do a trade, blah, blah, blah. So I applied, and I showed up at the I showed up at the recruiting office, and then it was time for testing. So I'd done some other stuff, some pre-testing and stuff, fitness and all that sort of thing beforehand. Managed to get through those, and then it was testing day, and then he comes around, oh, what do you want to do? And he went around these people, there's about 8 of us in the room. And he gets to me and goes, oh, so what are you doing? Because they had different tests for what you were wanting to go in for. Obviously, the infantry test from my time when I went through was the most basic, easiest. And I said, oh, well, I want to do infantry, but my mum wants me to join and get a trade, become an engineer. He goes, oh, okay. So he gave me the engineer's test. Well, long story short, I failed that completely. And he came back around, and there's no filter then. There wasn't like PC, quiet with your marks and all that sort of stuff. You come around and go, yep, you're good, and gets around and gets to me, and he goes, have you thought about joining infantry? And I couldn't help but smile. So I left that room a little bit. I thought, well, while I was sitting in the room, actually, just thinking, oh, shame. Like, everybody in here has just heard, like, he's too dumb to pass the engineer test. But I could do infantry. But I was really stoked at the same time. So I was like, yes, that's what I wanted to do anyway. Yeah. And so I went back home, told my mum, said, Mum, I failed the engineer's test, but I can join infantry. She was not happy. she accused me of failing the test on purpose, that I was lying. I was like, Mum, I'm not lying. I sat the test and I did. That's what I got. I failed it. And anyway, so I got to go do the part that I wanted to do. So I joined infantry, was posted to did basic training, then core training, and then was posted to a place called Palmerston North in the North Island, 1st Battalion, 1 RNZIR, so 1st Royal New Zealand Infantry Regiment, and cut my teeth there and started trying to learn as much as I could and try to learn from these senior soldiers and people that I looked up to going in. So I was 18 when I joined, and then and then the opportunity came around. So I spent a little over a year in the battalion. Then the opportunity came around to go on selection. So I applied, put in my paperwork to do the selection for the New Zealand SAS, and and then went on selection, passed selection, went on cycle, completed the cycle, but I unfortunately had an altercation with a civilian during during a period of time on the cycle, and it resulted sadly in that person ending up in hospital, and I ended up facing a 6-year prison term if I had have if it had gone right through. So I went to court. The case dragged out for a while. So I was charged with wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, or GBH. Couldn't plead self-defense. So the short of it goes, we're at a friend's party. We were down the driveway. The person that was yelling at another civvy that was walking off. So I was at this party. It was one of my friend's birthday parties. So we were on the same course together. Was yelling at some other person that was heading off, like not there anymore. And I tried to calm the person down. Said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just come back up." I had met this individual earlier in the party. So don't worry about it. Come back up to the party, because it was just down the driveway. And then he was like, F off. And I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it, man. Come back up." And I, just sort of tried to coax him along, and then he flicked the hand away and shoved me up against the fence. And I still didn't think too much of it. I was like, I said, "Come on, man, let's just go." And then he cracked me right in the head. Head went back. I saw red, and then and then we got into it, and then I had to get pulled off him a couple of times. So by then the police came, however long later, and he got taken off in an ambulance, and then the guys took me back to the barracks in the car. But then the police came to the barracks later on, knocked on my door, and then and then it went from there. So it was very early. So this would have been around May, from memory, of 2000. May of 99. Sorry, and the final court hearing didn't finish until around October. Octoberish of that year. So still needing to rock up to work, still needing to do course after course, and having the weight of potentially going to jail, because I already knew when they did the interview. I just thought, when they came to pick me up, and they do whatever the words are that they use, you're not obliged to give anything. But I just thought, tell them the truth, and everything will be like, I expected to get in trouble for something, but I didn't expect to be facing losing my career and or going to jail for it. So lesson learned from there. They come back, and one of the lessons is don't ever give a statement to the police. So that was one thing that came about. Don't ever give a statement to the police without anybody there. But I didn't know that as a young 20-year-old. I was just thinking, the police have asked me what's happened. This is what's happened. Guy got angry. I tried to bring him back up. He shoved me eventually, and then he cracked me in the head, and then I got angry, and then I gave my hiding. So that was that was in my head the simplicity of the scenario, but because of the injuries that regretfully that he suffered, that he had, the charges were what they were. So that's what I was looking at, potentially going to jail. But thankfully I didn't. And the only reason I didn't, just to wrap this, to speak about this piece, I don't mind speaking about it, but the reason that I didn't was because the guy that I had the altercation with actually came to court, and he was there on the final court hearing, and the lawyer that was there, the judge I'm standing in the dock, or standing I think, and the judge says to the lawyer, "Well, I still need special circumstances to not send this person to jail." And so I'm thinking there, I'm standing there thinking, I'm toast, I'm done, I'm off to jail. And then the lawyer goes, "Well, I believe the victim is in the courtroom today. If I don't know if he has anything he wants to say, and I thought that's random. Why the heck would you go and say the victim's in the courtroom? He's just gonna link and yeah, send him to jail. That's what I thought anyway. But he didn't. He stood up and he goes, "Oh, I'm the victim, I suppose you could say." And in a nutshell, he said, "Oh, I came here to court today to see justice done, but I don't want to see this guy lose his career over what's happened." He goes, "There was a couple of guys that had a bit too much to drink, and I shouldn't have punched him, and he shouldn't have lost it the way that he did, and I came off second best." And so the judge asked him a couple of questions if he had recovered fully from his injuries. They weren't too flash, to be honest. Not something that I'm particularly proud of, but he hadn't fully. He said yes, and then I think the judge asked him if he was back at work, and I don't believe he was. I caught up with him briefly after, but he said yes, that he was, just to, I guess, try and make it sound a little bit better for me. So I ended up with a 12-month suspended sentence, meaning that if I got in trouble for anything else, I would serve whatever time, be charged with that, plus fulfill the time that I was originally charged with for this one. So I needed to behave myself for at least 12 months without any incidents, and I had a $2,000 fine to pay, and plus his medical stuff to pay. So pretty light considering in terms of what I was being faced with, losing my career and stuff. But yeah, thankfully I didn't, and caught up with him after. I shed a few tears when I saw him because I was just very grateful of what had happened and the way that he came along. And basically he's the reason that I didn't go to jail. So based on his comments, was the only reason that I didn't go to jail. Probably the only reason why I'm still, why I'm here, why I'm sitting here with you, because I probably would have been down a different path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is like the Iron Wolves version of Billy, but obviously a bit more darker.
Yeah, not as good as Billy's encouragement of Iron Wolf with his stuff, but yeah, a lot of lessons learned through that. So sadly for me, back to the SAS piece here in NZ, I didn't get to receive my bureau because even though I'd completed cycle, because of that, what they had done though, they didn't cut me off. They said, "Oh, you need to go back to battalion," where I was from, RTU, or return to unit it's called. Go back to battalion for 6 months. You come back the following year and you kick back off and cycle at a certain point of the cycle and carry on, do the cycle again. A lot of the courses I had already completed. Well, I had completed all of the courses by that stage, by the time the bureau ceremony and stuff come around. So I'd be repeating some of the cycle again, which in and of itself would have been fine because it would have been an opportunity to learn more.
Yeah.
But the reason that I didn't go back is because that's not what I was told when all of the stuff, before the final court case had happened. So leading up to the final court case, I had been told that if everything goes well, if I don't go to jail, then I would, subject to completing cycle and all the courses to at least the minimum standard, then I would go and be posted to a squadron. But I'd be under the microscope, which understandably, be on a probation, another probation. So in addition to the suspended sentence that I didn't know that I was going to get on, but they were reasonably confident at that time and hopeful, confident, whatever, that I wouldn't go to jail, that it could get reduced to common assault, which there was no jail term in that, but it wasn't even able to get reduced to that. So because of what I was told and because the way things turned out, and I didn't go to jail, I then got called into the office, and so by the same people that had let me know that I wouldn't be sent back to my unit, and then the goalpost shifted, and I was told then, after all of this, after what I'd already been told, so I'd been told that earlier, I thought, okay, cool, I still need to keep my head in the game, focus on the courses, do what I need to do, blah blah blah, but still carrying this weight of, man, I could be doing all of this for nothing, like I could be going to jail in a few months' time, and all of this is for naught, so to speak. Anyway, got through those, didn't go to jail, and then I got pulled back into the office and then told, you're going to be sent back to your unit because people have been sent back for doing less than what I had done, but you can come back and carry on the cycle, go through blah, blah, blah. Well, I was young, very young, and I got angry at that stage. And naive, and I said, yeah, nah, I'm not coming back. I'll go to Australia. So I'll go enjoy the Australian one, which is what I did. But I it was primarily because of what I had been told. So I'd been told one thing, to a degree, I guess, pinned my hopes on that and was like, okay, well, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to focus on the course, pull my head in. I'm not doing any of that rubbish anymore. I'm here to work. Felt that I did that, completed everything, and then to be told that just before the beret ceremony, that's the rite of passage, so to speak. You've earned your beret, and you can don the sandy beret and the winged dagger on your head. And because I felt that I'd done that, and then I didn't have the opportunity to do that with my cohort that went through, I had to. The most gut wrenching part for me was I'd been told that I'd need to go back, but I'd been given my beret the day or two before, like everybody else. So you shape it so you don't have this big floppy baker's hat flopping around on your head on the day when you get it. So it's shaped nicely. So even though I'd been told that I'd be sent back, I thought, that's strange. They've given me my beret to shape. And then I was thinking, well, maybe I am going to be able to walk up with my cohort. But long story short, wasn't able to. I shaped it and I handed it back. Then I got pulled into the RSM's office. Then I got pulled into the CO's office because word had already gotten around to them by then that, oh, this guy, he's not coming back. He said he's going to go to Australia. And so I stuck to it. I didn't go back. I was upset. I was hurt by what had happened. And I'd felt to be, I look back on it now. At that time, I'd felt hard done by. I felt like, and I didn't care that other people had been sent back. Again, this is my youth and my naivety coming through. I didn't care that others had been sent back to battalion for doing something less than what I had done. What I was focused on at that time was me. Like, I don't care what's happened to them. You told me that I can stay here, that I'll be on probation if I do everything and pass. I've done everything, I've passed. Now you've changed the story and you're sending me back to the battalion. So I took it as a big up yours. So I thought I'll try and get them back and go, well, up yours too. I'm not coming back. I'm going to go to Australia. So I left, went to Australia a few months later. So I got returned to unit. But to their credit, the unit here, wonderful people, good men. At that time, they did what they felt they needed to do. They still extended their arm out and saying, hey, you can come back. So later on in 2000, there were senior members of the unit of the New Zealand SAS that were on a particular course that I was helping out on. And they pulled me aside and said, so are you coming back? Thinking that, a few months might have changed my mind, but no, I was still stubborn, pig-headed, said, no, not coming back. I'm still going to Australia. So I did. Left for Australia in the following year, around about October 2000. I went to Australia and then had to go through it all again anyway. Went through all the selection again for there and then the cycle and then joined the unit, the Australian SAS unit there as an operator, and loved it. Loved every minute of it.
So how does the Australian or New Zealand SAS differ from the British SAS?
So I can't speak for the British. What I can say though is obviously it originated there. Captain David Sterling at the time, and they're the creators, the founders of the Special Air Service. And New Zealand and Australia, from what I can tell, are very much modelled off the foundations and the bones of what's been set at 22. And I guess the selections vary, and the operators themselves, I guess, to speak to that, because I can speak a little bit about the three, having worked and served with some of those that have come from those units. The mindset and stuff of the individuals, from what I found to be very similar. The strengths in terms of soldiering and all that sort of stuff I found to also be very similar in terms of the people that I was lucky enough to serve alongside with anyway. Attitude and sense of humour seems to be pretty similar and stuff as well in a lot of things. But, I guess the difference, that's a tricky one for me to answer. But if you're talking about the difference in terms of the processes to get there, no, the processes are pretty similar. It's just a different environment. It's like the UK and the weather and stuff there. Then Australia, the weather and stuff and the environment there during the selection processes. But they're very, very similar, and they do a lot of interaction, a lot of inter-service, a lot of long look exchanges and stuff where you'll get guys from NZ, Australia, the UK, and even America where they'll spend significant amounts of time, 18 months to 2
Yeah.
years, in that country, embedded with them. They'll serve with them. They'll see all the, they open their doors essentially. So, and then there's a lot of positive transfer of information that way from the different units, and that knowledge then gets shared amongst the units to help with the intent of trying to make the units better, because we work
Yeah.
side by side. We're trying to help each other to improve, whether that's tactics, whether that's equipment, whether that's strategies in terms of how they're approaching things, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a great experience, man. Loved it.
Yeah, I was always under the impression though that like the SAS never revealed their identity. I mean, you'd get it now. You get TV shows in the UK where like SAS like take celebrities through like these
Yeah. They got that
SAS
in
style.
Australia too. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I was always under the impression it was like concealed identity or just something that you never really spoke about. So it's quite refreshing to hear yourself be quite open
Yeah.
about
And
that journey.
it's still like that now. It's easier for people, particularly for me. I've been out for so long, so. But when you're in, yeah, it's one of those things you find workarounds and things. It's like, oh, I'm in the army, and oh, what do you do in the army? Oh, no, I just help out with some of the admin and logistics. Sometimes you go on field exercise. You sort of speak around about terms, or you just like for me, it was easy. I just say, oh, I'm infantry. So you're like, oh, okay, yeah, infantry. They're like, oh, yeah, grunts, dumb grunts. Yeah, that's
I'm
usually
an
the
engineer.
yeah. Well, I couldn't use that because then they might have thrown questions at me and I would have got them completely wrong. But an infantryman, they could, oh, what do you do? Oh, yeah, we dig holes. We live in those for a while. We go bush, live out of our packs for weeks at a time and all that sort of thing. So that was easy for me to speak
Yeah.
about.
Joe, I think we're going to have to do this podcast in two parts, mate, because this is too good. I don't think we're going to go into burpees tonight. Right. So here's a question, Joe. Right. Other than New Zealand and Australian services, who are the best soldiers you've ever worked alongside? What country do they come from?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I haven't been asked that before outside of New Zealand and Australia. Best soldiers I've worked with. Yeah,
Like most professional, the ones that you thought I could like put my life in their hands, the ones you felt like safest around, or something to that effect.
yeah, right. To be 100% honest, Lee, it would have to, yeah, I can't think of anybody outside the three. So New Zealand, Australian, British. I can't think of any because I never spent enough time with them, is what I'll put that down to. So spent a little bit of time with different operators from different countries, I should say, more so in the private security sector, but not in a defence force setting, not like what I was fortunate enough to do whilst actively serving in the Defence Force itself, if that makes sense. Outside of that, there's people obviously that I worked with from different countries, Rhodesia, South Africa, the Gurkhas and stuff as well, who were brilliant. I loved working with them, but again, it wasn't in a military-backed operation, if that makes sense. It was private sector stuff, but they were brilliant. They were awesome. Loved working with them. But from a purely defence force setting, people that I've worked with, I can't think of anybody outside those three. I didn't spend a lot of time with Americans, so that's why I haven't put them there. Not that I think that I couldn't trust them, but to be genuine and honest, the three that I had was NZ, Australia, and the Brits.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't pick anybody outside that. Those three were, I felt, any task or patrol I went on that had operators from those units in there, I felt like at peace, for want of a better, as much at peace as you can. Yeah.
Do you think that's like to do with, like, as you've already mentioned, the cultural similarities? Because it was quite interesting when you were talking about how senses of humour and like things of that nature
Yeah.
are similar. Because I found, like, I stayed in Australia for just under a year, and that was
really?
something. Yeah, and that was
Whereabouts in
something.
Oz were you?
I stayed in Sydney. I stayed in Victoria, Melbourne, and
Right.
Mildura. I stayed in Mildura for quite a
Wow.
while. And I travelled through Brisbane,
Yeah.
up to Cairns, the usual backpacker sort of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Awesome.
and ended up picking fruit for a few months.
Yep. It's
Real
good. Good
slave
to get
labour.
by. Yeah, yeah.
Real slave labour. Humiliating work. Humiliating. It's like you fly over to Australia on a year visa thinking, oh wow man, I'm going to be doing this and that, and you end up in some field picking fucking tomatoes.
But you do what you need to do, to get by.
Oh man, honestly, that was brutal, man. Brutal. But like right, so like I want like so yeah, cultural similarities with
Yeah,
people because the sense of humour I found was exactly the same. Like Australia, they were drinking tea like you drink in Britain.
yeah,
They drove on the same side as the road. The
yeah,
humour
yeah,
was very similar. Probably a
yeah.
bit more forthright in those countries, but
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. So
yeah,
that
yeah.
to your point, yeah, and that's largely, I think, a key part of it as well. The cultural similarities, and there's just a connection, through the wars and stuff as well. There's that connection there as well. There's from at least my perspective, there's a bond, there's a brotherhood there that already exists far beyond, well before I had the privilege of serving with people from those units. So yeah, there's something that binds and connects us in that way.
All right, well, to expand on that question I asked a couple of minutes ago, what about private sector? What would be the difference, like when you become up against, like you said, individual operators? Do you see a difference, like between the individual operators with regards to their military background?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So the private sector was really cool, for a number of reasons. One, I was going into an environment that I was used to already, and two, I was getting to work with people that I didn't get to work with in the New Zealand SAS. So there's some really senior guys. I'm not going to mention their names on here, out of respect to them, but they know who they are. That I looked up to going through selection and cycle, knew who they were in a number of cases, but obviously again never had the opportunity to work with them. But so then finally having the opportunity to work alongside them was really eye-opening to me, and I just thought, man, if I had been in the unit while they were there, I would have learned even more, and I could have been even a better soldier. So those elements of that particular environment were really cool to me. So to your point around what did I notice, I just noticed a level of professionalism. So just to backtrack a little bit, the company that I got to work for was a UK based company who at the time anyway were only recruiting or employing former New Zealand British SAS, and they had a couple of Australian SAS operators, and then I would have been probably one of the third ones because I'd come from Australia. And you only got into that particular company through word of mouth, through vetting. So guys that if they knew you or if they didn't know you, it's not hard to find out about you and who you are and what you're like and that sort of thing. But I was fortunate that at least one of the guys knew me, and he was a team leader in one of the teams. And he's the reason that I got my first gig with that company and then was able to carry on working with them for a number of years. But awesome people. Level of professionalism is one thing that stuck out. Their mindset and approach to tasks was one thing that stuck out to me in terms of it was like being back in the unit again. They're very focused, very disciplined in what they were doing, and I just lapped it all up. I loved it, seeing the way that they worked, and for me it made the transition somewhat easier because I knew I was technically a civilian now and a private security contractor, but it's still hard to let go of that life and of that environment for me personally anyway. So it helped a little bit there, and things just sort of morphed into, or they carried on for a few years, and I loved it. The differences, some of the negative side, I guess, maybe to which might help as well, was seeing some of the aspects of soldiers at the time, and I don't want to paint all of the soldiers with the same brush because there's some very, very good operators that I was lucky enough to work with as well. But there's what I noticed is that there were a lot of, I guess people would call trigger happy young soldiers behind the butt of a rifle or behind the butt of a machine gun in the military setting. And you're getting warning shots. They're not really warning shots when they're hitting the windscreen in the vicinity of where the drivers are. And that's, yeah, it's just could be was quite concerning at times. Thankfully, none hit our windscreen of the vehicles that I was in, but you could see vehicles in front when the American convoys and the Humvees and vehicles are getting too close, or what they felt was too close, because there's always that fear of the IED, and that's the last thing you want to be hit by one of those. So warning shots turn into blinking quite accurate rounds into a windscreen of vehicles in front, and then it causes whole massive traffic jams and that sort of thing. But those things, and from my view and my perspective, not being the soldier on this time around behind that weapon, pointing it back at essentially what are civilians. Yeah, that was real concerning, and to be fair, frustrating and annoying, because we made sure that we never got too close to those Humvees or the vehicles that were traveling in convoy for that reason. But it's, yeah, so there's those things. I never came across any Brits or any Australians or any of the New Zealanders doing any of that sort of stuff. Maybe they did, but I certainly never heard about it, never saw it. And again, for me, that's part of the reason why, to your earlier question, why I felt so comfortable with people from those units or from those countries.
If you don't mind me asking, Joe, what countries are we talking about here?
What's that for? For the
Yeah, for like you in these situations where like we trigger happy young soldiers. What
oh, so
countries
this
were
is
you?
so this is in and out of Baghdad, the majority of the time, in and
Right.
out of the
So
Middle
you
East. So
served in
right,
Baghdad then?
yeah, right in and around on the streets, in Baghdad, and
As a private contractor?
yeah. So you don't have all the military assets and support that you would have been in the military. So yeah, completely different. So we're in a lot of times soft skin vehicles, or to be fair, a lot of times we had up armored vehicles as well. So civilian looking vehicles, but up armored to a degree, so that we could have some level, a little bit more protection. But yeah, so yeah, kicking around there and looking after. My time there, we had a lot of television media, so they're wanting to get to where the stories are, right? Where all the good stuff, or where the supposed good stuff is, where the juicy bits are. So that's where I guess you get what you pay for. And thankfully, we didn't have, well, at least while I was lucky enough to serve there with the guys that I was with, we didn't have anybody snatched or taken or killed while we were looking after them. And they continue to pay for those companies to look after them in those places.
Joe, you blow my mind, mate. Seriously, I knew you had something of the night about you.
Something of the night, yeah.
I knew there was a darkness to you, Joe. Like I just never realised this was like. I knew
It's
you'd
not all tea
served,
and
but
Vicky's.
right. So like, dear me, are we ever going to speak about burpees here? Right. So
So burpees, yes, I'll do lots of burpees. Probably
no,
not as many as I do now.
me. I'm not interested in burpees right now. I'm interested in this shit. I'm in awe listening to this. No, seriously, mate. I'm in complete awe listening to this. Right, so Joe, how do you keep a level head, right, when you're working in Baghdad in these scenarios? Like me, I just couldn't. Like that just blows my mind, right? That guys can go out there and operate in those conditions.
Yeah.
How do how do you do it? How do you switch off? How do you maintain that professionalism and that level-headedness that you need to ensure survival? I mean, this is what I would assume to be the case. I may be completely wrong, but I mean, feel free to fill me in.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, you got to, I guess, to try to paint a picture. There's been a lot of training and exposure to those sort of environments leading up to that point, for at least for me anyway. So having already served, so we were operational in 2003 when the second Iraq War and stuff happened. We were in there with the people that I was lucky enough to be with from a defence force setting. So you're sort of already familiar with the environments, and the reason why I mentioned when I left and got out, I was going back to a familiar environment again. I felt comfortable in that space, and you know what? To be absolutely honest, I felt like I knew what I was doing. Like when I transitioned, just sort of diverting a little bit, but I'll come back to your question. When I left all of that completely, I was lost, bro. Like I had no idea. Like I'm now full blown civvy. What I got to go to work, and I'm not in that environment anymore. I was really lost. Anyway, I'll come back to that. But coming back to your question, it felt pretty comfortable and natural, to be quite honest. And the more reassuring part for me that gave me so much confidence is that I was with people that I knew I could trust, hands down. Back to your earlier question, like there's no doubt. Like even if things went terribly wrong, if the crap hit the fan, I knew that these guys were going to do everything for me. And because of that, because of the way they made me feel, and because of that just implicit trust that I had in them, that I was going to do everything for them. So it just became about the people that you're with on the ground, and obviously the client that you're charged with looking after, that you're getting paid to look after, or the clients, and we're going to look after them. And they trusted us, and because of that, because of the level of trust that they showed in us, we didn't want to let them down. You're just not wanting to let each other down. So that certainly helped. But the training and stuff and the exposure that you go through leading up to that lead, just it just becomes hardwired and part of your makeup. You know what to expect. You know that things can turn on a dime at the drop of a hat, and you can go from everything's relaxed and cruisy to all of a sudden weapons have got to come up, and you're telling people and vehicles or pedestrians that are coming up to you to stay back. But then also at the same time needing to be mindful that there's women and children who are not part of that, and the effect that that potential have on them. And a lot of these things go through your head in an instant. And then it's just being able to try to deal with those situations individually as they happen, or collectively as the case may require, or you just get out of there as quick as you can, depending on the situation. So there's a heck of a lot of stuff happening, and you can't practice or rehearse for every single scenario. What you do is you get exposed enough, at least for me anyway, during my time in the Defence Force, to a whole bunch of different scenarios, whether that's in the kill house, whether that's talking through things in terms of desktop type scenarios or whatever, or going out and practicing stuff, specific scenarios, and then a combination of all that knowledge and information together, I found anyway, and the people that I was lucky enough to observe and work with and be under their leadership, gives you enough tools to be able to generally speaking, deal with and approach most situations reasonably well, or hopefully somewhat competently.
Right, Joe. Listen, I mean, I'm starting to think if I'm getting a bit too like into this and personal questions, but it's obviously really interesting.
Yeah, all
But
good.
can you like tell me a time, right, when you had a hair-raising situation where you thought, "This is it, this is it. I'm in too deep, and this shit is just going to go completely wrong."
Oh, that's a good question. I I don't know if there's a. I can give you a hair-raising situation where I felt not so much that this is in too deep and this can go terribly wrong. I actually,
Joe, I don't want to hear about your 1,000 unbroken burpees, mate. All right.
no,
I'm speaking about your job and like as a
yeah,
private
yeah.
contractor.
As private, private or military.
Yeah, no private, because like the military, right? I mean, I don't know, right? Like, I'm just assuming this, right? But the private contractor seems more like hairier to me because, like, you was talking about soft skin vehicles, less protection,
Yeah,
like probably being more of an exposed target in some respects because you know is identifiable as an army.
yeah,
So in that I mean, maybe he had a more hair-raising situation in the military, but as a private
yeah.
contractor, that one jumps out at me. So
Yeah. No, and that's a very valid, good point. Yeah, because it is a lot hairier. There's no doubt about it. Even just traveling to get from, at the time, Perth, Western Australia, into Baghdad International Airport, and the routes taken to get there is is completely different when you're not in the military setting. So yeah, but mate, I'll be 100% honest. Because of the way that we operated with this particular company, so we traveled low profile. We weren't in big armored look at me vehicles. We never traveled in high speed convoy, even though we had the skills or the training and stuff, I guess, to do that with the vehicles that we had. That's not how we operated, because all you're doing is just shining a bright spotlight on you and everybody in your convoy, whether you're 2 or 3 or 4 vehicles strong, saying, look at me. And so all old mate needs to do is just sit on the side and wait till you're in vicinity, or whichever car he wants to do, and hit the button and then bang. So we never operated like that. And so to your question, that's hair raising. Probably the most hair raising thing was just going, maybe rock, paper, scissors, who's getting the soft skin vehicle today? Because we'd have a mix of soft skin and up armored, or a couple of B6 armored German engineered BMW's vehicles, which again wasn't massively out of place. Like when you looked at the vehicles that were kicking around, plus we just left them dusty and dirty looking, so they just blended in with everybody else's cars, you know. So that was probably it's like okay, well, these are the senior guys, so they, you know, they get to pick and choose. So I, you know, take my seat in the soft skin vehicle. But again, that would, to be honest, bro, that was probably the most hair raising. We never had any shots fired at us, but purely, and I put that down again to the way that the leaders of those leaders of us on the ground, the way that they operated, structured our routes in and out of tasks, because you're meeting with people on all sides, right, with the media. So they want to meet with those that are maybe sought after, let's put it that way. But they have a story that they want to share, and they've got their own security and stuff involved, and then there's negotiations and stuff that need to happen in order to be able to go and have those certain meetings, and then prominent television hosts will be able to sit down and have those conversations, and then we're like, okay, yeah, thanks, and then we've got to leave, and that's probably just a dummy place where they've come. So there's, you know, they've got their own level of security whereby we don't just come back and go, oh yeah, they're at this place here, and then all of a sudden the troops go and marching in there, but they're not there. So there's all those sorts of things that happen behind the scenes of stuff. But we were very, and so I did that for about 4 years. Not one incident. Didn't need to fire one shot in anger during that time in the private sector from my side, which was a great blessing, no doubt about it. So from my side, so we were very fortunate, but also very disciplined in the approach and the way that things were being done. So it definitely wasn't a cowboy outfit that I was fortunate enough to be a part of. These guys were, you know, very, very experienced special forces operators, and knew what they were doing. So I was just learning more and more as I was with them, and loved the environment. Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming the goal is like that's a goal achieved, because you don't want to get in any scrapes, and you're there to like get the job done and minimise any dangerous contact, I assume. So
100%. Yeah.
And you know, and I respect that, because that must be testament to your abilities as an operator in that field, because obviously you didn't have a hair-raising story to tell me about, other than getting to put in a shitty car or something like that. You know what I mean, mate? What a letdown, mate. What a letdown.
Yeah, no exciting stories there, eh? But yeah, that was the truth of it. And you know what? If I could go back and do it again, and if that was my only hair-raising story, I'd do it again. Like,
No,
that,
of course,
yeah,
of course,
that'd be great, a great outcome.
Wow, honestly, Joe. Right, so Joe, are we talking burpees, or are we doing a two-parter here? Because
You're the host, bro. So you're the. Hey, actually,
No,
one thing I want to mention. You know, the last time you did this, when you introduced, who did you introduce? No, you did our catch-up, right?
yeah,
And
last week. I think it was the week before.
before Moses Cuevas interview,
Yeah.
right? And one thing I was supposed to mention, I forgot all about it, but I'd been thinking about it. When I introduce, I always say, like, welcome to the Moose Sweat and Suffer podcast with your co-founders Lee Hazard and myself, Joe Hotai. Like, I always mention you, but you didn't mention me at all. You just said, I am the host. Welcome to the Moose Sweat and Suffer podcast with myself, Lee Hazard. And I was like, but what about me?
Mate, I'm a total narcissist.
No, but I laughed, and I was supposed to jump in and go, hey, don't forget about me. And then by then we were well into the conversation, catch up, and then I forgot all about it. But I remembered now. So yeah,
Joe,
I was hurt that you didn't mention me, co-founder.
Look, Joe, build a bridge, mate. Right, I was nervous. Right, you threw me in the deep end. I was completely unprepared.
That's what I put it down to, nervousness.
I'll say it in the next one, mate. Don't worry about it.
Crack up. Yeah, but no, you're doing well. You're doing very well. So keep it up. More practice, more exposure.
Thanks very much, Joe. Your opinion means a lot to me. Even more so after this episode, where my respect for you, which was totally minimal,
It's even more minimal. It's even more minimal now.
No, it's shot into the stratosphere. It's shot into the stratosphere. But you know what? You've actually made me feel really guilty now, because like I can be quite selfish at times, and you've exposed me to a certain degree. But that's good.
Yeah, and we did the same with Toe Nerve too. Like how you've nurtured him, and everything. I loved how he looked straight at the camera. He looked at it, he's like, thanks, Lee.
Yeah, I could see that. Like I could detect a hint of seethe emitting from the camera. Poor tone.
That was such a good catch up with him, though. It was funny.
But you know what, Joe? This podcast isn't about me. This is all about you, mate. the co-founder of Move, Sweat and Suffer.
I love how you brought that back, and I love how you included co-founder. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
how was it? So right. So now, how was it getting back to civilian life after
Yeah.
the private contracting?
Yeah, that for me anyway, I pretended that it was all good, but it wasn't. I really struggled. I missed the Defence Force and that environment. I was very close to going back. And sorry, the part around the Australian piece, like again, I was young and stupid there too. So I left. I didn't leave in the best way. I should have, I should have just sucked it up in terms of what was happening there. So to paint a picture, you go through basic, you go through core training, you do the selection, you do the cycle. In my case, I got to where I wanted to be. Yes, I'm here. Sandy Beret, Wing Dagger, send me away on jobs now. That's what I joined up for. That's what I want to do. My wife and I have got a young family at the time, so we just had our daughter, and then our son was on the way. But I was still very much selfish. Like, this is, you're good, you're safe at home. I've got to go to work. Like, and when I would come back from work, I was doing more work. So I was preparing, checking my gear, going over my stuff. Because just that environment, everybody's so much better than you. I found anyway, everybody's just at such a high level that I just did not want to be the weakest link in the group, in the patrol. So I would bring the work home with me, and I'd be thinking about the stuff that I haven't done very well that day or that week, and we go, man, I need to, how do I make this better? Is it my equipment? And then I'd just be in my own zone, in my own world, because at the drop of a hat, you could be sent off. You get the call up and go, hey, you guys are mobilizing, coming to work. So that was always in the back of my mind. And then with all of that stuff there was a course that came up in Australia, and they're good courses. Like, I never completed it because at the time I thought, this is rubbish. This isn't what I joined up for. So they're called subject courses for promotion and that sort of stuff. And it doesn't mean that you're going to get promoted. So there was nobody saying that I'm going to get promoted. But I didn't want to do it because I viewed it purely as a camp soldiers. Like, you're marching around, you're worried about where your ribbons and your medals sit, that you got creases in the right places of your uniform, that everything's neatly ironed and pressed. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, send me back out in the bush. Like, that's not what I joined up for. So I could not see any value in it personally. Like, there was nothing. No matter how hard my leaders tried and told me, go do this, do that. Yeah. One day we see you as a leader, blah, blah, blah. I was not interested. I was like, no, I don't want to do it. Anyway, they sent me on. I went on this course. I was on with four other guys from the unit, from the same squadron. And if I had have gone with the, long story short, if I had gone with the right mindset, with the same mindset that I had on selection and cycle, wanting to smash this course and wanting to do as well as I can, would have been a completely different outcome. But I wasn't enjoying it. I didn't like it. I felt that I felt that I was being treated like a child. But that's the way the army is. The army treats everybody like a child, even if you're like high up the ranks. And so I should have already understood that, but I just wasn't ready to go and do that course at that time. All I wanted to do was be away on jobs, because that's where I felt I had a value and a purpose and a meaning. And that's where I felt my skills were. I didn't feel my skills were on a parade ground. I knew that I could yell and bark orders on a parade ground. I didn't need to go and do a course to do that. But there were so many other skills on that course that I missed out on because I said, stuff this, and I left. I said, no, I'm going back to the unit.
I think we're going to have to start calling you Joe Hothead Hotai.
Yeah. I think that would have been a much better suited name for me back then, because
definitely.
Because I did, and I just sacked it. I said, no, I'm going back to the end. They're like, no, you can't go back. Like, you're still on the course. I was like, yes, I can. Just watch me. And so I did. They called I went back. My leaders tried to talk me and just stay there, do the course. I was like, nah. And then I went back. Anyway, long story short, I then eventually, I got annoyed with that. And I felt I got put in a situation where you go do the course again, or you show cause as to why you should stay in the unit. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I've been away, done this. Well, can you not see why? And I tried to put it across. I said, look, listen, because they said to me, how are you going to feel if people that join the unit after you then get promoted and then they become your leaders? And I was like, I don't care. Like, as long as they can do the job, like, I'll back them 100%. Like, that's all good to me.
Yeah.
But I guess not everybody's wired that way, or they weren't happy with that answer. Maybe they didn't expect it. But like, rank didn't hold any place. And in that unit, like, you're not even saluting the officers. You're calling them boss or bro, or by their first name or by their nickname. And that's what I loved about the unit. Like, you're there to do a job, and yes, absolute respect for them and the path that they've taken and the seniority that they have. But when it's time to work, you're there working, and everybody has a seat and a voice at the table. And so I loved that. So I couldn't see any value at the time. But anyway, I left not on the best terms. But when I came out of the private security sector, back to your question, finally, I was tempted to go back. I was tempted to go back to the unit and go, okay, listen, yeah, I'll go and do that stupid course. Like, yeah, I'll come back now. Like, sort of, just because I was missing that connection. I was missing the guys that I'd worked with. And I could have stayed on the private sector with guys there, but even that, to a degree, wasn't as fulfilling. Like, it wasn't, to me, it wasn't the pointy end of the spear in terms of the work that I felt that I was more trained to do and wanted to do. So, yeah, anyway, I didn't go back because I'd already said to my family and stuff at the time that when I get out, I would get out completely and not go back. So I was caught in a situation where I didn't want to break my word. I told my wife, my sweetheart, that, when I get out, I'm out and I won't go back. There's options to go reserve, so you're part-time and it's sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out situation, where you can still be involved, and at the drop of a hat you can merge, go straight back in. But I knew, for me personally anyway, it would be far too easy to just go back in. I never, so maybe subconsciously to a degree, I probably anticipated that I would struggle, but I didn't realize or anticipate just how much. So I wandered around, been lucky enough to work in a whole bunch of different industries though, as a result. So from mining and oil and gas and health and safety, training and assessing, set up a gym over in Perth, which is still running and operating today. Did my health and fitness or my personal training stuff back in 2008 or whatever it was. Still held on to some of those things. Worked in the not-for-profit sector and community services, right through to food manufacturing to where I am now in the intellectual disability space, and lucky enough to serve in that environment, trying to support people there with disabilities, working as a 2IC to the general manager for that particular organisation, who's an awesome lady. And yeah, been really good work, but to be absolutely honest, never as fulfilling as my time in the Defence Force. Nothing I've done has felt as fulfilling. And sadly, there's a point there where when I was out and finished the private contracting stuff, that not even my family, not even my wife and children were able to fill that void for me that was left by the military. So I was just, and that's probably part of the reason why I train. It just puts me in a different headspace to a degree. I'm in my own world, but I wasn't the best person or easiest person to be around. And my kids, to the point where my children were, even too afraid to, can I say I love you, Dad, or good night, Dad, or have a good day, and that sort of stuff, just because I was very difficult because I was missing that connection. Like, nothing was filling the gap for me. That's how I felt anyway. And so it's taken a long time, bro. So it's probably only been the last maybe 18 months. And even that's probably being generous in terms of me coming to terms with that part of my life. As great as it was, but I have a whole nother chapter, or more chapters to write with my wife, with my children, and with the things that are happening. And that I need to experience new things and put myself out there, because to your earlier question, it is very secretive, that environment. People don't generally come out and speak about those sorts of things or that part of their life. And and that's how I always felt too. But I thought, man, I've always had an interest when I've seen technology and stuff develop, and I've gone, man, I reckon I could do that. But then I thought, oh no, I can't do that. I don't want to go put myself out there. And it reminded me of when you were speaking about when you came across Iron Wolf, and you were like, I could do that, like just real simple videos. And I thought, yeah, why not? We talk about challenges and facing our fears, and you need to grow and all these sorts of things. And I thought, well, why not? And so I thought, stuff it, I'll do this, and I've enjoyed it. Haven't looked back. It's still challenging for a lot of times for me, but I've been enjoying the process as it's gone. But I stumbled in a lot of things when I got out, trying to transition into what might be considered a more typical civilian lifestyle. Yeah, long answer, I know, but hopefully it helps give some context or paint a bit of a picture.
Listen, Joe, this has been an absolute blast. I'm not going to lie. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to your story. I wasn't
Thank
expecting
you.
half of what you said. Honestly, I think this will be well received. I think this will be very well received.
Hopefully it helps in some way.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it's very interesting. It's like I've been. It's hard to describe how I've felt listening to you. It's just because guys can always relate to this stuff, like the army stuff. There's a masculinity in there
yeah,
that
that's a
you
good
always
term.
pick up on guys because we were brought up in that environment. Like, I never served or anything like that, but I've always had respect for the military.
Yeah,
Because it's
you've
something
always
that
said that too.
it's something that I couldn't do. So I take my hats off to guys that can do it and do that grind and just have got that mindset. So it's been very interesting, like really interesting listening to this. So what I think we should do, Joe, personally, is I think we
Yep.
should do a part 2, and we should then go into the burpee phase.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think that would, because I think like when you were talking about filling the void, I was thinking in my head, then burpees filled the void. And then we just make the transition into episode 2.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
But we need to do this again, Joe, because I think this will go down well.
Oh, good. Well, you're the scheduler, brother. So you're the scheduler. So today I was the
Day,
fill-in.
mate. Boxing Day.
Boxing Day. All right. So that's next Sunday. Well,
Boxing Day burpees, mate.
Boxing Day burpees. How good would that be? So yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Awesome. Hey, and one thing I forgot to mention on here too was that really great. I was just in the middle of putting in a donation on your thing for the 2,500 burpees. So I'll do that after this, but then
Thanks
I saw
very
you
much.
come into the waiting room, so we'll do that. And I see you're over the target that you'd said anyway, which is awesome. So just a shout out to all of those that have been not only supporting but contributing. And I just wanted to mention, as I said to you, I'm going to post 2,501 the day before you do it.
You better not. I will never talk to you again.
I was getting cheeky to Lee, everybody saying, "Hey, yeah, I seen your thing. I'm gonna do it before you, and I'm gonna post it up."
You better not. You're more than welcome to do them alongside me, Joe, but you're not posting a video up the night before, which I wouldn't be surprised if you actually did.
I'm so tempted to do it, but then when I read your comment, I was like, "I will never talk to you again." I was like, "Oh, is he serious?" And I was like, "Nah, he's not serious." And I was like, "Yeah, you will."
No, Joe, I'm serious. I won't talk to you again, mate. Mate,
But
do you know what?
That's such a great cause. That's such a
Yeah.
great cause.
Do you know what? Like, there's been a few stories recently
Yeah.
in the UK regarding. There was like I know it's going to take a turn here, but there was
Yeah,
two
do it.
two stories in particular. It was a young boy called Arthur Labinjo Hughes, and he was in the care of his dad and his stepmother, and they neglected, abused, and ultimately murdered them. And obviously the social services, the warning signs were there, but they never followed up. So there's been a big mistake somewhere in the system. And then a couple of weeks. So this story was received throughout Britain, and it was horrific. And it's one of those stories you try not to listen. As a parent, you just try to ignore in some ways because it's just brutal. And then the other day, there was one about a little girl, a very, very similar scenario, and Star Hobson. And do you know what? I just thought, do you know what? Fuck this, man. I'm going to do something. I just had an
Yeah.
idea. I wanted to do some burpees for charity at some point, but I was kind of thinking, what charity should I do it for?
Yeah.
I was like, my father passed away with cancer like 10 years ago, so I've always had a wee sort of affinity with cancer research. But then I seen that and I thought, you know what, that's something he's done about this. That struck me as a parent.
Yeah.
That chilled me to the bone when I heard that story. So, yeah, 2,500 burpees on New Year's Day. It's going to destroy me because I did 1,000 the other night, and
I saw that.
yeah, that was
But
it wasn't tough,
yeah.
but it was tough. You know
Yeah.
yourself. It's
Yeah.
a mental
100%.
grind. It's a mental
Yeah.
grind. But you know, like you wake up, it's a hard recovery. I don't think I'll do a burpee again after this.
It's a hard recovery when your immune system isn't very strong, Lee.
I know.
But I was gonna say you had that comment there. You know, you didn't do 1,000, eh? You just did 10 sets of 100. So it's not 1,000.
I know.
Work that one out, people.
I know. That's not.
So
YouTube
10
comments,
sets
man.
of 100 is only 10 sets of 100. That's not 1,000.
I know, man. The guy's an absolute nutcase, man. An absolute nutcase, and I'm going to say that live on air because I don't give a shit, man. The guy is he's an annoyance.
The interesting thing is when I saw that message, because I know you've wanted to get this person on the podcast. I was not impressed. I was like, yeah, nah. And then I was like, flick this guy off, and I was like, and no, he ain't coming on the podcast.
But you know what? I totally agreed with you. I thought, you know what, this guy's an all man. So I don't know how I'm going to get this to. I'm still trying to work out the logistics. I'm thinking I might just do it in my living room, put the camera on, and just film the whole thing.
Do it there. Yeah. Make sure you put a towel down. Put a few towels down.
I know. When I was doing the 1,000, I could feel the carpet getting wet. I'm thinking Michaela's going to kill me.
And hey, I wanted to ask, you want to shout out the charity that it's going to?
Yeah, it's for the NSPCC, which is a charity for like vulnerable children and victims of child abuse within the UK.
Awesome, man. NSPCC, shout out to them. Thank you for the
so
work
get
that
the
you're
donations
doing.
in. Let's get the money there.
Yeah. So yeah, I will get mine in today. You'll see it because it's got optional. Mine will just be TGE.
I love it, mate. No, right, the great elder, mate. The
Great elder.
A hothead Hotai.
Formerly hothead Hotai.
Former hothead Joe. Former hothead Joe Hotai. Brilliant.
No, but this has been awesome, man. Thanks for the
listen,
the time.
You're right. It has been awesome. I've loved this. I've absolutely loved this podcast. Number 2 next week, mate. The burpee face.
Yeah.
You can just see it in neon lights.
That'll probably be about 5 minutes, that one, which would be good because that won't
quickie.
take long. Yeah.
I'll catch up.
Catch up.
But
Exactly.
listen, guys, you have been listening to the Move, Sweat, Suffer podcast with your host, Lee Hazard, and fellow host and co-founder and former hothead Joe Hotai.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Awesome. The pleasure has been all yours. Thank you.